Hello and welcome back to Restored 2023 and the book of Isaiah. In today's chapters, the prophet's attention turns to Egypt, historically one of the great powers in the region with which Israel has had to contend. Now we know, don't we, that the people of God had originally been brought out of slavery in Egypt, but by the time of Isaiah's ministry, the political situation has changed somewhat. Egypt's glory days are long behind her, and it is now Assyria that is dominating the region and proving the main threat to the Israelites. Around 722 BC, the northern kingdom has been conquered by the Assyrians, putting a lot of pressure on Hezekiah, the king of Judah at the time, to ally with the Egyptians. Around 10 years later, the Philistines, encouraged by the Egyptians of course, rebelled against Assyrian rule, and Hezekiah had no doubt been approached as well to join the revolt. Isaiah consistently warned against this, and was proved right when the rebellion was brutally put down. We see in chapter 20 how he is given the task of walking around naked for 3 years to demonstrate the shame and disgrace that will come upon Egypt and all who rely on her aid. The prophet's key message is that the people of Judah need to look to their God for deliverance from the Assyrians and not to Egypt. Egypt is weak and cannot even help herself. Again, Isaiah will be proved right, as the Assyrians conquer Egypt in 670 BC. In chapter 19, the Lord, through Isaiah, pronounces judgment on Egypt. Before the Lord of heaven and earth, both Egypt's people and her false gods are powerless. And we're reminded here of Psalm 115, verse 8, which tells us that those who serve idols become like them. Both idols and people are described as trembling and fearful. The judgment will come in the form of civil war and ultimately a tyrannical ruler, the cruel master described in verse 4. Now this could be Esarhaddon of Assyria, as we've said, but it could also refer to any of the other tyrants who conquered Egypt over the following centuries, including Nebuchadnezzar and Alexander the Great. Egypt was conquered a lot. The actual identity of the cruel master is less important than the point Isaiah is making, which is that Egypt is always an unreliable and ineffective ally. How can a nation so susceptible to tyranny be looked to provide freedom for Judah? Isaiah lays out the 3 key weaknesses that Egypt has as a nation. The first is their religion. They are polytheistic and pagan, worshipping powerless idols of metal and wood. Such a religion can never unite a nation, and it leaves it bereft of the Lord's presence and guidance. Secondly, they are utterly dependent on the Nile for their agriculture and economy. The river's annual flooding provides the only fertile soil, so when the Lord strikes it, the country's industry collapses overnight. Thirdly, Egypt's rulers are badly advised. The wise men in whom Egypt took so much pride were actually fools, yet their counsel is given real weight, so it leads the whole nation into ruin. Despite this bleak picture, in verse 18 we have a dramatic change of gear. Isaiah switches from prophesying about imminent judgment and casts his vision far into the future, to the distant day of the Lord. Now several remarkable events are predicted for this day. On that day, says Isaiah, many of the Egyptians will abandon their idols and serve the true God, and he will hear their prayers and deliver them from their oppressors. The irony here is tangible. Judah is currently looking to Egypt for deliverance, but one day Egypt will look to Judah's God. More amazing still, there will be peace and unity of worship between Egypt and Assyria, the 2 bitter rivals. This would have seemed totally impossible in Isaiah's day. But the prophecy doesn't stop there. Isaiah says that Egypt and Assyria will be given equal status with Israel and a share in its role to be a blessing to the other nations. It's hard for us to imagine just how difficult it would have been for the besieged people of Judah to hear this about their ancient slave masters on the one hand and their contemporary enemies on the other. Such reconciliation and unity can only come about on the basis of the worship of the true God, and because of the promised Son of David, who will be a light to the Gentiles. The end of chapter 19 gives us hope that if it is possible for these nations, then it is possible for the rest of the world as well.